Elaine, please. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I realized we forgot to hit record.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. So I would say, Kate and Elaine, chime in if you would like. So here we go. Some of this is clarifying questions or clarifying the statements that are being made in the bylaws. This part is about in order to vote. In order to vote, an organization, entity, or group, new acronym for this is OEG, must, and then the bullet list, have a representative attend 3 consecutive meetings of the council. And then the second bullet is have been active in Yolo County at least 1 year, or must be a local fire safe council, prescribed burn association, Firewise community, or other similar fire related community group. So Kate added this to avoid, painting ourselves into a corner, to better define what we mean here, and not inadvertently, not letting these new entities become voting members. So that's definitely an intention that we started out by having, and this makes it a lot more clear and matches up more with our application. I will say just at the start of this, some of the things we'll decide this evening, we will then apply to the application to make sure those, pair up. Tracy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm still seeing that. I mean, I could still qualify as a member the way this is written, and I don't think I should qualify as a member because I just run a private business, even though I work in fire. So it still doesn't get to that. Just have been active in Yolo County for at least a year, do all the meetings, all that.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion?
I sent an email about it after last meeting. I don't remember what we said then. Wait, scroll up and what's right above it in terms of, maybe it's that it has to also keep going up to the list above. So maybe it has to be somehow tied to that.
Okay. Sorry, Tracy, if I didn't get that in there.
That's okay. I just said, we want to be careful about this.
Okay.
Because otherwise any business that's doing fire stuff would be a member, and I'm not sure that that's what we want. At least that wasn't the original intention.
Mm-hmm.
So from a for-profit perspective, to eliminate that or deter it.
Okay, so I missed what is the recommendation here, Brad? To add a non-profit or nonprofit entities, no for-profit private entities?
Yes, I would imagine some language like that to maybe spell out what Tracy's really pointing to, is that we're not necessarily soliciting for-profit businesses to essentially become members and voting members that could potentially cause a conflict of interest or.
Okay, so I just added representatives of organizations, entities, or groups, not individuals or for-profit entities.
Not for profit, not for profit, right?
Not individuals or
Oh,
for-profit.
for profit, I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
Just for grammar's sake, if you say not individuals, say nor for profit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Don.
Thanks, Don.
And I think in a similar grammar vein, after the parenthetical OEG, instead of a semicolon, I think that's a comma. I want the phrase added. Great.
Okay. Representatives of organizations, entities, or groups, comma, not individuals nor for-profit entities.
While we're throwing out small grammatical corrections, it might flow a little bit better if it says not including individuals nor.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Does that still warrant the nor?
Probably change the nor to or. Or it could probably remain the same.
Does this portion seem complete?
Would it make any more sense to just keep the original text as is, but put a second bullet point that just says voting rights shall not be extended to individuals or for-profit entities?
That's a good suggestion. It makes it clearer, I think.
In this
Agreed.
section?
Otherwise, it gets too messy.
Members of the Yolo County Fire Safe Council are this and this. And then is that a statement or a bullet point? Bullet point?
I think it would probably be a statement since the items in the list are completing the sentence of defining who are the members. It probably just saying that individuals or for-profit businesses are not eligible for voting membership.
Yeah, that's much better.
For voting membership, they're allowed to be non-voting members, right?
Thank you. Perfect.
Ah, good.
So I'm actually going to take out this whole piece here.
Yeah,
Ooh, high pressure to be doing this in front of like 25 people. Oh, okay. Now you know my typing speed. Okay, so representatives of organizations, entities, or groups, OEG with at least 10 members. Or, okay. And then individuals and for-profit entities are not eligible for voting membership. And then continue down.
And I was wondering additionally, and it might be implicit in this statement, but would it be worthwhile to put that in order to vote, an organization has to fill out an application for voting privileges and be approved rather than just fulfill the requirements?
We don't have that in there, do we? Okay.
well, here's a question for you. If someone fills out the application, does that necessarily mean that they're going to be a member, or is there some reason that you would keep them out?
I would add a bullet at the end of that list where you were after receive only one vote and say have an approved application or something to that effect.
Yeah,
An approved application.
This is Kate. How about have submitted an application for have submitted an application and been approved for membership?
mhm.
This is Neil. In the bylaws, then you'll have to identify how an application will be approved.
Yeah, exactly. You need criteria.
Is that spelled out further, Heather, as far as the defining membership versus voting members and non-voting members? And
Good question.
you might need to, like, kind of what we're hearing is being able to define and distinguish between the two, and then how an applicant is approved for membership, whether they're a voting member or a non-voting member.
Okay.
So here's a question. And this isn't language. I'm not suggesting formal language right now. I'm just trying to get a sense of collectively, what is it that we mean when we're defining voting member, or pardon me, the non-voting member? Or is there a difference between that and somebody who's interested and is coming to meetings and can participate, but in the discussion, but can't vote?
A non-voting member could be anyone.
Well, I think that's the question. Do you want to allow anyone in, or do you want to have criteria for who you want to let in, even as non-voting members? I mean, you have to decide that.
I think the intention was to be completely inclusive in terms of participation of these meetings.
Would
In
it-
Yeah.
other words, that anybody who wants to attend can.
That would be what I would suggest.
So this is N, and maybe we should just get rid of all the verbiage around non-voting members and just, there's everyone else, and then there's voting members.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's bottom line is you have to decide if you're a non-voting member, what criteria makes you a non-voting member versus just a member of the public who's attending the meeting. That's what you have to ask yourself. I'm not telling you one way or the other what you should do, but you've got to make a decision as to whether you want just anybody and everybody to be a member, even if it's a non-voting member, or do you want to just say, you know, okay, I have these criteria, that's how you can be a non-voting member, and then you can still open it up to the public.
Okay, so we started out by, I think we know what you're getting at. Anyone else, please chime in. But I think what you're getting at is we also allowed for applications for non-voting members. The application says, do you want to be a voting or non-voting member?
Right.
So then there's three kinds of people who might show up. One representing voting member, a person showing up representing a non-voting member, and then members of the public who haven't applied to be a non-voting member.
Right.
It's a little, is that a little confusing or unnecessary to have those three distinctions, or is that what we're getting at here?
To me, it's a little confusing. And I mean, if it's easier to just have voting members and then make it clear that discussion is open to members of the public.
Would the distinction come in when you have like a representative of Caltrans attending the meeting on behalf of an entity that isn't qualified to vote, rather than just representing themselves as an individual's perspective? I mean, do you think that would be the differentiation between the two?
And we also have that with like the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. They're a non-voting member, I believe, providing expertise, you know, in fire stuff. So yeah, no,
Yeah, I think there may be reasons to have a non-voting member versus just any member from the public joining the meeting. But I just think you have to know what those criteria are, that's all.
Okay.
So I will speak as a non-voting member. I am happy to participate in this group. I'm proud to participate in this group. I'm active in fire safety in Yolo County. I happen to be a for-profit business, but I can still say that I'm a member of the Yolo County Fire Safe Council. And I'd like to continue to do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, if they're a member of, say, a private business, they have a vested interest in fire safety. And so therefore, it seems reasonable to make them a non-voting member versus just some member of the public who happens to be interested.
Right, but these meetings are open to anyone who would
Mhm.
like to attend, and I don't think that has anything to do with bylaws, because the bylaws are membership and voting.
Right.
And I'll say, Tracy, thanks for that example. That's a great illustration.
It's a really good example. And also NRCS, which has a lot to contribute technical support and advice, but they're not allowed to vote.
Okay, so here's the language that we have so far about this. We've got members of the public who hold a stake in fire and fire management of the county, but do not satisfy voting member requirements, are welcome to attend meetings and are encouraged to participate in discussion. So have we addressed that in this statement?
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. Unless someone has another idea.
Kate, you gave this a lot of thought too, because you also added this sentence: OEGs that do not qualify to be voting members or that do not wish to be voting members can apply to be non-voting members.
And does that work? I mean, Tracy and Phil, since you're here as non-voting members, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Sorry, what exactly was the question? I'm looking at your comment there.
Oh, there's a definition on here that's oh, sorry, I thought it was Heather's pointer. It was mine. That's not going to help. The definition, there we go, of OEGs that are basically the non-voting member option. Does that definition, does that end up being workable for where you're coming from?
Do not qualify to be voted. Do not wish to. I think so. I mean, it says up above that you can't be for profit, so I don't know if that contradicts it, but I think it was okay how it was. I mean, with this, it's fine.
So reading this is Ken again, reading this, it sounds like the distinction is between a group and an individual, and that makes perfect sense to me. That groups can apply because here it is OEG, that's organization, entity, or group, but not an individual. And then members of the public, those are implicitly individuals. And I think that's a reasonable distinction, but I want to make sure that's intended.
That was my intention when I was making that suggested revision, but that doesn't mean it's the group's intention.
Well, there will be groups that will be not individuals, but they won't be voting members either. They aren't necessarily just individuals.
I think as a member of the public, that could be an individual, or it can be a person who is attending representing an organization. I mean, an example was Caltrans. I don't know if that's the best example, but if somebody is here on behalf of another organization, especially if they're here for a particular topic, something like that, I think that works.
Hey all, thanks for covering for me, Brad. Appreciate it
No problem.
very much.
Yeah.
Stellar job, I'm sure.
Hey,
Sounds
Heather,
like you could
Heather, just a question. We identify in here in the bylaws the distinguishment of a voting group or entity. I wonder if it just makes sense that really that's all we need. We don't necessarily need to identify non-members or non-voting members. We can still have members of the public to attend. We can still have subject matter experts to provide advisory or just expertise and suggestions to the body. But ultimately the identified voting group will be the ones to, make those decisions. Does that make sense?
And from what I'm gathering here from the limited time that I've been back on, but for the previous conversations, and I think literally what the intent of the group is just to really welcome everybody's comments and discussion. We want to be inclusive in those ways. And then there'll be some limitations on who votes, but it's pretty easy to become a voting member if you should choose to do so. And even if you've fallen off that because you haven't been able to attend, it's also pretty easy to get back on. So just wondering if in the interest of time, we could begin to wrap this up so we can get to the business of making our community more fire safe.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So it sounds, I think we got everything we needed in here. is what I'm hearing, to address the voting, non-voting, and members of public.
I would just again suggest that we just put a short statement as to how membership applications are approved.
Okay, I will add that. How about I add that outside of the meeting and include that, so we can have, we can put some thought into that.
Yeah, I thought that the approval process was pretty much what we just outlined in the section directly above where, hold on, I don't have it in front of me on my screen.
Yeah, I don't think that it has to be approved or not. You either fit the criteria or you don't. And if you fit the criteria, then you're a member. And if you don't, then you could be a non-voting member.
But you have to go, you do have to complete the application, I think is what they're saying, to be, in order to get to be a voting member, you have to go through the application process.
Correct, but we don't all need to get together and go over applications and approve them or not.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe
approved
if
needs to go away.
You could change
Yeah,
it to
maybe I can
accepted.
say something along the lines of that.
Qualify.
To become a voting member, you must fill out an application attesting to the criteria.
Or qualify.
Meeting the
Membership.
criteria.
Okay, does that mean,
Yeah, that's better than approved. Approved,
Approved is
but then
dangerous.
assume that there's a process.
okay, thank you. Have submitted application and attest to eligibility.
I think you can wordsmith offline, Heather. We trust you.
Okay.
There's, I'll just mention that there's right above this, we stipulated what percentage of present voting members needed to vote in order to approve new members. So at one point in these bylaws, we meant that voting members were approving new members. And so I think it's fine to, if this is going to come back next month, I think it's fine to work on it offline rather than slogging through the whole thing.
Great,
As a group, but we stipulated something about voting for new members in the bylaws.
okay. Just moving on to a couple other things that needed discussion. Voting rights can be established by attending 2 consecutive meetings. And there was questions about whether they can vote on the second meeting or they have to attend 2 meetings and then vote on the 3rd meeting. I know the intent is to be inclusive. I didn't have any strong feelings. The group can discuss that for a minute and make a decision. I think we could keep moving.
I think the spirit of inclusiveness would be voted on a second meeting.
Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts on that?
Agreed.
So this is kind of related to one other thing that came up. I think Elaine brought this up about whether we are allowing vote by proxy. My understanding of proxy is that would be, if let's say the Cache Creek Conservancy is a voting member and they couldn't make the meeting and no one could make the meeting to represent who's from Cache Creek Conservancy, but they told us they wanted to vote yes on something. So as proxy, we report in that they vote yes. That's my understanding of proxy. But Elaine, if you have anything to add for that, in order to understand what we need to decide on proxy.
No, I think that's exactly right. That's what my understanding too. It's just a question of, do you want to allow proxy votes? I personally, I'm all for it, but the easier you make this, the better.
Right. And also in the spirit of like trust and inclusiveness, it would seem like it would make sense to be able to allow proxy voting. Does anybody have any objections to that? Hearing none, I think that is the only other major thing that discussion. Let's see when we're Okay, that's it. So unless I hear anything else, we can move out of the bylaws. We'll get this cleaned up. And we will add something about application. And I think we'll table the approval of bylaws. Oh, Dana Carey, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys felt comfortable in the essence of wordsmithing. I know that's a hard thing to do, but maybe coming to a conclusion on the bylaws document, maybe even in this meeting. There are current funding sources that we're being asked for shovel-ready projects and things for fire. So I hate to keep going month after month and not be able to apply for some of those funds because we're not an established group yet. So, I mean, I was wondering if maybe you guys felt comfortable doing that now.
Well, one thing that we could do, and depending on what folks say, and that I wanted to point out, that actually made me realize I hadn't scrolled all the way down. There was something in here about calling out Brown Act and that it's not a Brown Act body. My comment was, the Senior County Council, Philip Pagletich, had done a review on the original draft. We could, approve by one suggestion would be we could approve bylaws pending final draft and approval with County Council, final review. How do folks feel about that?
Makes good sense.
I'd make that motion, Chief.
Motion by Bill Weisgerber.
Second from John Lindsay.
Second from John Lindsley. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Voting pass. Right. Nice job, everybody.
Yeah, way to go. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds there.
Thank you to Dana for that was some motivation.
Yeah, no, we gotta keep moving. So next on our agenda is our coordinator report, which you guys were sent, but Heather's gonna really quickly just give you a few interesting updates.
Okay, hopefully everybody got a chance to just take a look at it. There are meetings. It looks like most of these have happened, but there's one coming up, Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council on the 13th of September. There isn't anything Tanya's got some community wildfire protection plan things to share after this, so she can do that. Everything is still in process in terms of contracting and waiting for awards, so nothing new to report there. Only pointing out that we are working with county's OES department to start an application for a funding for county coordination. There's a lot of coordination involved, especially right now as we're building this Fire Safe Council. So this is something we're working with OES on. And another grant that we're just starting to look at is a CAL FIRE grant. It's a landscape scale restoration grant, and Yolo and Solana RCDs are just starting to talk about that. It's due in October. And then the other, this is jumping the gun there. There's one other thing, and I don't know if Rose Lavelle is on the line, but I did go to the Pleasant Valley Agricultural Association meeting and learned about this really cool group called Team Rubicon that we should probably have come talk to this group at some point. They're a nonprofit that can do things now. They have they can do chainsawing, debris management, sorting and sifting of belongings from post-fire structures that were destroyed, fire mitigation assistance, heavy equipment work if there is enough need, and manual labor for recovery and mitigation projects. That is something that that Community Fire Safe Council is starting to put a list of needs together for. So if that's something that this group would like to learn more about, we could ask their administrator, who is a local person, to come and talk to the group and tell them about this program.
That's a great idea. I think with these nascent fire safe councils, everyone is interested in that kind of thing specifically. And we don't yet have a sort of rhythm of writing grants for it. So it could be great.
Okay, cool. And then I know Solano RCD is on the line, and OES. Do you guys have anything to add?
I might just add that kind of what I was referring to is sometimes I get emails like from the CAO or from Cal OES saying, do you have any shovel-ready projects for this funding source? So we definitely, I know, have been sharing those with RCD and things. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those too.
All right. And Senator Dodd's office does have a copy of this coordinator's report now at their request.
Yes, and they are on this call actually. So off we go. I'm putting a link in the chat to our Living with Wildfire Hub, and I'm going to share my screen. Woo, yikes. Computer did some weird stuff. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is this is what our consultant did, and it's very similar to the Napa and Sonoma County sites. I sent you the link so that you can peruse it at your own speed, because we could spend a lot of time here, but it's sort of a soup pot of information for the CWPP. So, and also for Fire Safe Council, which will be giving input to that. So we have a couple links here to our pages that are RCD sites about Fire Safe Council and the RCD. I'm going to skip those. And so here's some information about the point of the site, reviewing the community base map, let us know what folks think about values at risk in our community. And then a form to do projects that we'll hopefully just have, as Dana mentioned, we'll have a stack of these projects for folks that folks have filled out, that have thought about, that are shovel ready, or may not be shovel ready, but you know, that they'll be on the road to doing that. We already have one from East Davis County. So that's, yeah, and they did a great job filling theirs out. So I'm just gonna go, like I said, go through this fast because we could be here a long time and I don't want to do that. But we have this community base map, and there will be some loading issues. So there's an introduction, and then there's this arrow here that you just scroll through. There's our boundary for our CWPP, our watersheds. You know, a lot of this is sort of just basic information. The vegetation maps, ownership, state responsibility areas, the fire history, which we all know, the fire hazard zones, critical infrastructure. And some of it's kind of busy, and you know, you will want to take time and zoom in on areas that you're familiar with, giving us feedback if there's anything that doesn't quite match. Yeah, these crazy towers. Critical habitat. And this is, I believe, from the CNDDB, the Natural Resources Database, rangeland values, risk assessment. So, and then next step. So input, let's see if I can get back out of here. The input is what, of course, we would like. So we have a couple things. There's a survey on values, risks, and hazards. And we did send this out to our CWPP steering committee this winter. So if you go through the survey and submit it, then I get a nice PDF and email. Let's see what's going on with that. Yeah, I think you open it here. And again, take survey. This got slightly reorganized. So it's just really basic: name, email, location, where you are in the map, values, wildfire risk, how to rank this, hazard. A lot of it is no brainer. Of course, communities are the most important things to protect, but then we have ideas of projects, and this is for the CWPP. Anything else? And you can submit it, but I'm going to go back. And this is back to projects, the CWPP project submittal, which could also be Fire Safe Council project submittal. And again, this is a survey or a form, and it looks similar to the other one. Your name, email, group or agency, project name, and then we want a little description of the project. What's the purpose? Acreage, population. Where is it? Participating, cooperating entities, landowners. Projected start, projected end, level of funding needed. Who's going to perform the work? And then submit that. And again, I'll get a nice little PDF. And when OES asks if I have any shovel-ready projects, then we'll be able to say, here's a nice little description. So that's that. And again, I know I whipped through this really fast. That's my intention. I want you guys to take some time and go through it. Another way to submit information is this Smart Editor data review. This you can actually zoom into parts on the map and make your own polygons with little comments. So for example, I looked around on this map and I'll do a really easy one if it zooms. Right. It's a little slow. Shoot, not on here. So one of the ones that I did was I just made lines down the creeks as habitat. That's riparian habitat. That's a value that we would want to protect. And it sometimes, you know, if you put in a comment, you can also, or put in a polygon or a point, you can make a little comment on it. So the Dunnigan Hills were not on the list of high fire hazard, but we know from experience that north wind can come through and those hills will just burn as the livestock in it will. So I just made a little comment: protect for sheep grazing and grazing infrastructure. So this is interactive. And it's not, there's not a link to it on the hub site because this one you can tinker with. So I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? I know again, oh, and I will put this, the data review link in the chat as well. I'm going to stop
Anya,
sharing.
is this website ready for the public to access as well?
Yeah, we can share it with the public. Although I would hold off a little bit on that. Yeah, I'm going to say let's not just send it off to everybody.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the surveys. If we are both individuals and representing a group, how do you want that done?
I think, well, for example, the West Winters Fire Safe Council could,
That's a good example.
yes, I think that would be better than a private individual.
Could we do both?
I would just stick to groups.
Okay, and then we have to sort of do it together as a team or receive consensus on each item in the survey.
Yeah, because I mean, I know West Winters has a good list of projects, and pick some of those and fill out the form with the
Great.
top priority project.
Great, thank you.
And I will send these links out when I send out the notes and stuff, but they are in the chat, everyone.
And Tanya, I'm going to say having all those maps together that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to diving
It's
into
pretty
that.
cool. Yeah.
The one where you can play around with it and input data, does that data then go to RCD or OES, or is that something that's just completely local?
So this we're sort of sharing the management of this with our consultant, she's really good at this, and we're just learning. You know, I can make a few like text edits and stuff in the hub site. You know, we're learning how to use the hub site, and we are going to have an intern who will be helping manage that as well, because it takes tons of time. You know, all that graphic stuff just takes so much time, and right now we've got grants and projects wrapping up. So the input map will go, that one's being managed by our consultant.
Great.
But it's not going to automatically go up on the hub site, I don't think. And Tracy, our valuable non-voting member, do you have anything to add to this? As someone who's done this a lot.
Yeah, it's great. I hadn't seen it before. It's really good. In Sonoma County, we did something similar. We did open it to anybody in the public to provide input, and we didn't get a lot. So,
okay. Did you do that right off the bat?
Yeah, it's a public website, public input survey is what we called it. And in Napa, and we got very few comments. So I think if somebody's interested and they want to give us comments, go for it.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely share the link with my email list for sure. And if anyone wants to forward it to interested parties.
Dina's got a question here too.
Yes, okay.
I was just going to add in that story map that she's displaying is actually built in ArcGIS Online, and the county has an ArcGIS Online account as well. So any data that goes into any ArcGIS Online account can be shared with any other account. So Kate, when you say, will that data go to the county? Because I know you're very familiar with how we store data for public safety power shutoffs and alert and warning and stuff like that. We can share with RCD, just the construct of the software allows it.
Great, that's terrific. And so when somebody's sitting at home inputs something on that, then it does go so that then OES and RCD can input that and consider adding it. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not a GIS specialist, but we have a lovely one in our office. Lovely. So thank you, Dana, for clarifying that. Okay.
If I could just add into, for those of us that are maybe not quite as tech savvy, but at least can make our way through the maps, just get your information to Tanya, however it suits you best. You can email it. You can certainly talk on our next meeting about it. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity to be able to look at those pieces and maybe just describe the map and what you're seeing. So don't worry if you're not too tech savvy. It's all right.
Yeah, that's true. I did find that the smart editor very easy to use, and I'm not super tech savvy. So, but yeah, just comments, and then again, filling out the surveys. If you're not into scrolling around with your mouse, and if you rather type, then please do that. right.
CWPP project list. Are you gonna take that one on too, Tanya?
Well, you have it in the coordinator report, so maybe you can do that since I do not have it handy.
Okay, you got it.
I will say that this is a super rough project list.
Can you see it?
These are just things that we threw up there. Yeah, can you make it a little bigger?
That would help.
You got it. I gotcha. Okay,
much
how's
better.
that?
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, so I added a few from the West Winters list. We're always talking about chipper programs, and of course, then there's others TBD by stakeholders that could cover pages and pages. But as we get surveys and forms, then we can build this out in better detail. And you can see there's some shovel-ready ones, so that's exciting.
Can someone tell me what a knockbox is?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that, Elaine. That's a tool for fire agencies, really public safety, both police and fire commonly use these. It allows us to gain access to secured facilities, businesses, even gates to properties where the fire department will have a specific key that's keyed for that specific lock. So it's just a security type system that allows fire department access and gain access to provide service or respond to an emergency.
Okay, great, thanks.
And I believe in West Winters, we have specifically talked about putting maps there, particularly the CWPP map, which is quite nice, because a lot of times first responders turn up and don't have access to that map. And if it's sitting there in the Knox box, then bang, they have it and they can figure the place out.
And, and interesting also, just as you look at the area and the maps that were out there, one of the things you saw was SRA land, which is state responsibility area. And there's generally three types of land, though there could be more. But for the bulk of it, it's state responsibility, local area, federal responsibility area, and then local responsibility area. Tribe is kind of a different one that's mixed in there, like local in many cases. So we think of it as often as, hey, my local fire department might be coming, or CAL FIRE might be coming. They know exactly where I live. They're connected with us, but it could be you could have a fire crew coming from Fresno that comes to you, or a federal fire partner that comes in, or someone from out of even the state, somebody from Oregon that comes to protect your home or your area. So it's really important that they have every tool that they need to be able to protect your home their best, which maps are really helpful. Knox boxes are fairly universal, but not always. They're jurisdictional in a lot of ways. But so thinking in terms of if a larger fire were to come beyond what my region or my local area could handle, how would they get the information that they need?
Thank you, Becky, for sharing that.
My sense is this list is going to get built out really quickly, and as the projects that we have in contracting get contracted, there's going to be a lot happening really fast.
So some of these things, Tanya, and it's kind of maybe a question for you, Tanya. Are these are things we haven't gotten a project description for, or maybe could get one through that NITO hub you just shared?
Correct, like the Madison fire station. Kurt put that in there. Thought that was a good one. So it's just, this is almost, at this point, this is almost a wish list, but it's going to, of course, become a more of a realistic thing as we get more information.
So would it be a
You
fair
s-
request for those who've added to this wish list to complete a project form?
Heather, East Davis County has already filled out the form for that project.
I know you have, Bill. You're our only one so far.
Oh, okay. All right. Just so you know.
It looked great. I was very
Yes.
impressed.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
anybody has a project, then that's the way to get it into the CWPP most effectively is go to that link and fill out the survey, the project submittal form. And if it's shovel ready, let us know so Dana can get it funded.
It's not super onerous. You know, you just need to put an abstract in there, but it's helpful if you have a budget and other things. And if you
Would-
don't
would a
have
map-
everything, still fill it out, which you can, right?
Would a map be helpful? And if so, would we put it in via the data review?
I think there's a map in the survey.
Yes, there is. There's a project location map.
Yeah.
You can go in there and mark on it.
Drop a pin or something. Yeah.
Awesome, great. And the more the merrier. So if West Witters comes up with, a dozen projects at our next meeting, we could just put them all in.
Yes. I mean, all the projects will eventually get, and pardon me, Tanya, I'm just gonna jump in. All the projects will get prioritized through the CWPP process, but it's really good to develop that database of projects now. So as you all are thinking about projects, get them in. And then we'll prioritize them, get them funded and implemented.
And we don't need to put priority on them ourselves because you guys are going to be doing that, right?
I would say if you guys have decided that it's your priority, you should note that in the text. Like this
Okay.
is our number one, this is our number two, number three, so that can be incorporated into the countywide review process.
Let me just comment, this is Neil, that on the Greater Winters CWPP, the number one priority in projects was the prescribed burn along Highway 128. And if you notice, this is one that has been completed this year and it was done last year and the year before as well. So yeah, getting it into that project list is really important and it's effective.
And I just add and expand upon Tracy's mentioning is really shouldn't limit your expansion of potential projects because that allows us to really look at and see how these projects might fit into certain funding buckets or various sources. So yeah, don't preclude yourself or limit yourself on that.
So I think that means if you have a distinct, you might have 5 or 6 projects, and if they're distinctly defined or budgeted for or able to describe separately, that you'd want to have as much detail as possible. Is that? And have 5 forms filled out versus just the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that'll feed that into the database later, et cetera, and then into a grant proposal, all that.
Okay, so this is kitchen sink style. All right.
Becky,
you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a question on how we've got the funding to be identified, and I'm wondering if it makes sense. And I understand that when you get the applications that those would have amounts, but some of these may have some rough amounts that they may cost that we may generally know. And it's good, I think, probably to have varying amounts of projects that they might cost. If you've got some easy ones that are low hanging fruit that are just a few $1,000s that you can just knock off, those might be it might be good information and inform our decisions and what we might put forward. So you may also have something really large, like I see a new bridge at County Road 40. It's going to be a pretty expensive project, right? So, and then there's things everywhere in between. So what are the thoughts on Dana or Tanya or Heather, anybody? Does that make sense to have what we think a project like this might range? There are going to be times where we just won't know that because we won't know the magnitude, but I don't know.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It'll give us an opportunity when we get a call from, from somebody that says, hey, I've got 100 grand. I can direct $100,000, or hey, I've got $5,000 and we can direct it.
And so the way we put it in the form is by a range of values, 1 star to 6 or 10, I forget, 10 stars. So you don't have to have an exact budget, but you can say, you know, this isn't under $100,000 project, or this is $1 million project. That helps.
So looking at small projects is also great. You may have, you know, you just need a generator for some place that when power goes out or when there's a fire and it knocks out things that may be helpful for a number of, you know, for a small school or some other areas, you know, that there's PG&E buckets for that kind of funding. So there's all kinds of different things. So expand your mind on some of these projects. And then also think there are some small ones and big ones. And all of them could be submitted.
Right, like knock boxes. That's a nice little, not too expensive project.
Depending on how widely you do it, it could be quite expensive or not expensive at all. You're absolutely right on that one.
But it is helpful to get all the projects in here, like the example Chief Ramirez was using about the generator. We have other funding sources that come out of PG&E and places that are specifically for electrical projects. So it may not even be a fire type of a funding source.
Okay.
Yeah, one more point on that is it may seem like it's not much, but then also we can aggregate them in the county. Like if a handful of different communities need 1 or 2 generators, and we can pull that together into a larger proposal for several. So put it all in there.
Cool.
All
See,
good stuff.
this is the fun part.
Oops, wasn't meant to be sharing my screen.
All right, Tanya, Heather, anything before to add?
Yeah, mark your calendars for our next meeting, which will be September 22nd, which I believe is the first day of fall. It's pretty exciting.
And it seems like this time frame is working well for those attending.
Correct. And then just as a side note, the Housing Authority did manage to find someone to participate at the time that we chose, so we didn't have to move our meeting. They've had a long-standing meeting, so that all worked out, so we can keep this time. And then just so you know, at 5:30, or we could just keep going, although Rose isn't here, we're having a Yolo or Solano Yolo Fire Safe Council leadership meeting of sort of peer-to-peer learning. So Tracy will be here till 6.
And Chris is here. Chris Rose is here.
Chris is here, and Moira's here, and Bill and John are here. So folks who want to stay on about that, are welcome to stick around.
Thank you, Tanya, and just thank you everybody who came and attended today. Really good input and getting some things moved along. And for the sake of time, for those that want to jump off, we'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The leadership meeting it does have a different Zoom link. So let's just start it at 5:30 because then we can take a little break and hopefully Rose will join us as well from Pleasant Valley. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Great. Thanks.